As a diehard fan of the Resident Evil series, I was thrilled to hear about Resident Evil 4 being remade. I enjoyed 2, I enjoyed 3. I was like, oh man, when 4 comes out, it's going to be bossa nova. And I couldn't wait to play it. So my initial experience for Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube was a masterpiece. I remember actually pre-ordering that from GameStop and sinking my teeth into that for hours. Like, I was like, holy cow, this is an amazing game. It remains one of my all-time favorites, actually. I think it's easily top 10, top 15 game of all time. So the game just has this incredible immersive atmosphere where everything is just decaying and dilapidated and just like evil looking, and it has amazing classic puzzles, tense gameplay, and just for me it was a chef's kiss. So when I heard about the remake, I was excited to see what Capcom had in store for us, and I must say I was not disappointed. End of review. See you later. Thanks for watching. No, I'm just joking. So the remake captures everything about the original game that I fell in love with, and it introduces quite a bit of new elements that make the game feel fresh and exciting. So when you get remakes, I tend to think a one-for-one remake is kind of boring. I want to see some swerves, maybe some twists, maybe some new modes, new things. So I love it. The first thing that stands out, obviously, is the improved graphics. When I was live streaming this, everybody was just like, oh my god, this game looks freaking amazing. And I gotta agree, there's parts where I'm like, wow, they have so much detail. It's stunning. It has detailed environments. There's realistic lighting. You could find yourself just getting awestruck with how certain shades of the light and the shadows and just flickering of candles and everything in this game just give real good attention to detail. And there's also really impressive character models, especially like some of these enemies. Oh man, the big ox guy scares me. He looks like a pro wrestler. So the game's graphics definitely helped create an immersive atmosphere that will just draw you into the world of Resident Evil 4, which just always had this distinct feel. You know, you think Raccoon City and Resident Evil 1 was in the mansion, Resident Evil 2 and 3 were in the city. Resident Evil 4 had its own flavor with being out in this whole, you know, weird village that's out like in Europe and this big gothic castle. So they did a great job improving on that. Now, the gameplay in Remake is outstanding, and I think they made changes for the better. They modernized it, and I like it. It did take a little bit of getting used to, of course, but so did the original. The game feels more like a survival horror game, which in the original, it was supposed to be that, but it, you know, when you think of the difference between 2 and 3 and 4, it got a little bit more action-packed. This one still is very action-oriented, but I feel that they slowed things down quite a bit compared to the original. There's definitely a little bit more in way of subquest and stuff that kind of slow things out. The cutscenes are actually more cinematic with the feel, and you feel that they fleshed out the story quite a bit. It doesn't feel as basic. Now, some people might not like that. They might want the thing to be a little bit one-to-one, like an actual 100% remake. I like variety. I like new things, so I find the slower pace added a new level of like almost watching a movie. It increases the tension, in my opinion. It gives you a certain sense of fear to the gameplay that the original didn't have. You know, I don't think the original was that scary. This one is so much more scary because random stuff happens. You could be walking on a platform, a hole breaks that didn't break in the original, and it puts you in a whole new area, and you have a whole bunch of new enemies that are there that weren't in the original game, and it just adds like a feeling of suspense because it's a whole brand new experience. One of the aspects I love of this remake is, again, the addition of new enemies and puzzles, new areas that you haven't seen before, stuff that might even be previously inaccessible in the previous versions. These elements help keep the game fresh and exciting. Even if you have played the original a gajillion times, like myself, I own it on the GameCube, the Wii, the freaking Switch, the PlayStation, the PS2. I basically have like every single port of Resident Evil 4. So to have new stuff throw me off, and if you watched my stream, I'm like, oh crap, this wasn't in the original. It definitely just gives me like goosebumps thinking about how exciting this is. There was a lot of parts that frustrated me too, that were much more harder than the original. The game's puzzles are clever. There's some new stuff thrown there. They're challenging, and there's this whole new layer of challenge to the game because of the variety of different enemies, the enemy placements, the layout, and stuff like that. Now, as with any survival horror game, scarcity of ammunition and resources is the name of the game. You gotta time your attacks. Sometimes it's best to run away from enemies and stuff. And this one, I feel they upped the ante as far as ammunition goes. Now there is crafting. You can learn recipes to craft ammo and bolts and grenades and you name it. But of course, when it comes to that, you have to earn enough money, and that goes with, exploring, looking in every nook and cranny to find the pesetas. So yeah, they definitely did a new mechanic of scarcity, and crafting comes into play with that. So I like that. It adds a new level of tension of surviving. Again, I feel Resident Evil 4 didn't have that much of survival feels to it. It was more action oriented. So it gives a new method of gameplay, which is to be strategic about how you use your resources. And then on top of that, they have a stealth mechanic. Now you can crouch and be more stealthy and do stealth kills if you have your knife. The knife breaks, or I guess they wear and tear with every use. So if you have knives, which is another mechanic, and you find knives, you can use them to actually be stealthy and stealth kill everybody. Kind of feels like Assassin's Creed type of thing, where you're walking around the village and killing everybody stealthy, and you can sneak up on them and save your ammunition. So it goes hand in hand with the survival aspect. And you also have to choose whether or not to use your knife as much as you can, because in the OG, you can basically spam the knife if you shoot a guy down, and just spam the knife and get them defeated. So yeah, there's, again, like I said, there's a lot of new surprises and changes. I don't want to spoil anything here. If you are a fan of the original, these changes will delight you. I don't see any reason why people might get upset at things being changed. I know Final Fantasy VII Remake, a lot of people got upset at some of the changes. I think these new surprises help keep the game feel good and fresh and exciting. To me, again, if it was just everything piece by piece like the original, I would have kind of been bored. I probably would have not gotten this game day one. So I think Resident Evil 4 Remake is an excellent game. Captures the essence of the OG. It introduces new elements that make the game feel fresh and exciting. It has improved graphics that are freaking amazing. The new enemies, the new puzzles, scarcity of resources and ammunition. The game's just much more challenging and immersive. And it's everything that I would have wanted and expected in this remake. Hands down. I think the slower pace, even though it might be a turn off to some other gamers, adds a new level of tension and fear for the gameplay. And if you are a diehard Resident Evil fan, Resident Evil 4 especially, this game is definitely worth playing for old and new players alike, actually. So yeah, if you're a fan of the series, I highly recommend you check out the remake. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you on the next one. Take care.